Of these this week as we come to the end of the session, and we are joined by the guy at the center of everything, the man in the red jacket, Senator Denny Hoskins, running for Secretary of State. Thanks for making the time.
Yes, thanks for having me, Scott.
Okay, let's just start off with what everyone's talking about. It was a bit of a. So I'm where was we? Friday night. I think Casey and I were at a wedding.
Yes.
And I hear all this big fight happened, and I'm like, well, you hear that a lot,
right?
And that happened. Then somebody finally sent me the video.
Mm-hmm.
So set the stage here for in case you live under a rock. We're not going to play the video. If you want to find it, it's not hard to find.
Right.
Let's just so essentially, Jay Ashcroft, the Secretary of State of Missouri, the leading candidate for governor,
mm-hmm.
and Michelle, your wife, got in a spat over what?
I don't really know. It was at Perry County Lincoln Days in Perryville, Missouri, at the American Legion. There, Jay Ashcroft had come off the stage. He and Senator Eigel had exchange a couple barbs and back and forth.
They're both running for the same office,
right? They're both.
If you told me those two guys get into it, I'd be like, well, Bill's been pretty aggressive.
Yes,
yes, fair enough. But with you, and then it was Michelle. I was like, what?
Right. Yeah. So Michelle was sitting in her chair around a table, and I was about 3 feet away from her, and I see out of the corner of my eye, I see Ashcroft put his finger in her face and bark off something, and she immediately was upset, visibly upset. And I was like, I asked her, I turned to her and said, what just happened there? And she said, yeah, he lipped off at me and put his finger in my face. I said, no, that's not going to happen.
Well, honestly, that does not sound like the guy I know.
Mm-hmm.
I know Jay Ashcroft relatively well, and not a real confrontational guy, period.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
That kind of doesn't sound like Jay. I mean, were you surprised? I mean,
I was surprised, but yes, I was surprised to some extent, but not totally surprised.
Let's just be fair.
Mm-hmm.
You somebody wrote something about you and Eric Greitens, and on Twitter I was like, nope. Then he took no shit off Eric Greitens. You may be more alpha male than a lot of people in politics,
right?
Maybe I think it's fair to say if you push hard enough, you can find your temper.
Yes.
I have. I've not seen you slack away from any fights, but I'm really like, if you don't mind me asking, what did he say to Michelle?
He said something to the effect of, "You can't handle the truth, can you?" And she immediately, like I said, she was immediately busy upset.
The Jack Nicholson line from A Few Good Men.
I guess I'm not really sure. And so I got up and took Jay aside. He was in the corner, back in the back corner of the American Legion, and I just said,
and you walked him right over to Schwadron.
Well,
that's funny.
Well, no, he was already there.
Yeah,
he was already there.
Schwadron, right.
Right.
Just walked right over.
Yes, yeah. It's Schwadron was sitting there, and so I said, what just happened? And he said, your wife looked at me, and you can hear that on the.
Yeah, I heard that part. I'm like,
yeah. My wife. I mean, there was a lot of people looking at you. You're a candidate running for governor, and you just came off the stage. And so I said that's no way to treat my wife and talk to my wife. And I said, I would never do something like that to your wife.
Well, part of this was like, at first, when I watched the first time, you're like, what?
Mm-hmm.
So I watched it, and I was like, well, okay, maybe he noticed Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
At a political event, your wife is an attractive lady.
Yes.
That wouldn't be odd, right?
Right.
I mean,
right.
If you look at a Lincoln Day, a person might notice Michelle as one of the first 10 people they noticed, right?
Yes.
I thought maybe they made an eye contact, and maybe he somehow got. I mean, you and Bill Weigel are very close friends.
We are close friends. That's right.
And even your campaigns kind of have some synergies or something. I guess that
mm-hmm.
friendship extends into even the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, well, maybe he equated the two of you together, but it just seems wildly out of character for the guy I know to say something to you, much less Michelle. You had to be a little surprised, right?
I was surprised, but when I went over there and talked to him, I called him a few choice words. Chicken shit, I think was one of them. And
you made that clear?
Yeah, I made that very clear. And I called him a coward. And I said, hey, if you're a real man, you will talk to me. If you've got a problem with me, you come to me. You don't go to my wife and bully her and upset her. And that was basically the end of it then. And then.
So back in the moment, though.
Yes.
Pull him off to the side.
Yep.
Have this conversation. Probably, if it were me, your blood's running a little hot.
It was.
You're not making like 8-level strategic decisions.
Right.
You wouldn't have walked him over right in front of your opponent if you were gaming all this out, right? If
yes.
you do this again, you probably don't walk him right, 3 feet from a guy you're running against. But at some point in this, because I mean, you kind of got into doing some of that.
Yes.
Are you surprised he's still taking it?
I was surprised. Well, I think he was scared, and I think he was nervous about what me coming over and confronting him about bullying my wife, and he just took it and didn't really say a word. And then after that, I was back in the back of the American Legion. I had 3 separate people come up to me and say, "Hey, Representative Adam Schwadron recorded that," and I'm like, "Why would he do that? That seems kind of ridiculous." And so Jay and Adam were in the front portico, and I went out there and I told Jay, I said, "What you need to do, you need to apologize to my wife." And he just kind of blankly looked at me with a stare, and I think he said no. And I
Well, here's the
asked,
thing: like, if I had said something to Michelle that she took a way I didn't intend,
right?
I think if you'd said something to Katie Ashcroft,
Mm-hmm.
the tie kind of goes to the spouse. You
Right.
all choose to be in this bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
They don't.
Right.
You do think like a guy would be I mean, you might not want to apologize to you, might need to
Right.
knuckle up, but to your wife, it would surprise me. He's just say, "Well, yeah, I'll apologize to her, no problem." I mean,
Yes.
I mean, if it was Katie, something tells me that you'd be willing to apologize because you wouldn't want to be offending a person that's essentially a non-combatant in the situation, right?
That's right. Yeah, Katie Ashcroft is a very nice lady. We've seen her out on the campaign
Very
trail
nice.
before, and most certainly, I would never come up to Katie Ashcroft, put my finger in her face, and bark at her and bully her
But if
like
you're standing in the
Ashcroft
back of
did
the room and
Michelle.
she takes something the way you didn't maybe even intend it, you say to me that's what you do. If it's a spouse, you lean towards let me make it right,
Right.
and move on.
Right.
At some point though, I mean this video, what is it, 50 seconds?
Yes.
And it's mostly of you calling him a chicken shit and a coward.
Yes.
At some point, are you thinking this guy's gonna pop me? Because like to me, if I had said something to Michelle,
Mm-hmm.
and I would never intentionally say something
Mm-hmm.
offensive, but if
Mm-hmm.
I like to joke around, I say something that
Right.
she just doesn't like, right?
Right.
And I see you coming across the room. At first, I'm not going to know about
Right.
it, but after about 20 seconds, your first is, well, if I did something, I want to make it right. But then it's like, okay, buddy.
Right.
I mean, if that's Kehoe, that is not a 50-second clip, right?
Right.
I mean, and if that's Kehoe,
Mm-hmm.
a little temper about like you do,
Mm-hmm.
at some point, he's going to mall tap you. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
something's going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're not just
Right.
going to dog him for a minute, right?
Yes.
Did you start to think this guy's going to punch back, or did he just, what was the look on his face? I mean, I can see the video, but to me, if you're standing there, at some point in a 50-second cussing, you've had enough.
Well, he just had a blank stare on his face, and I personally think he was hopefully he was embarrassed about what he did, but he didn't want to admit to what he did. And so yes, I sat there and chewed on him, and told him that, hey, don't do that to my wife. I would never do that to your wife. If you're a real man, you will say something to me. I mean, that's the job of our husband.
And once this is over, like you saying, you're going to make some changes, Secretary of State's office. It's politics, right?
It is politics.
When you ran for David Pierce's seat, when he ran for Chris Koster's seat, during the campaign, I think it's just common sense. You get a little creative license. Jay Ashcroft is saying he's going to do some things
right
as governor that the likelihood of him accomplishing that's very small.
Mm-hmm.
That's politics.
That is politics.
And I believe you say what you intend to do, but
right.
on some level, you're going to have a situation where you're not always going to be able to do whatever it is.
Right.
And so I'm sure that it is a frustrating thing with all these statewide offices, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're the chief law enforcement officer, well, not really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, only if the local prosecutor asks for help, then you're the chief. Until then, you're like the advisor in chief until you're the chief. With the Secretary of State's office, I mean, there is some of the stuff in this that you can do a lot of things.
Yes.
Great job. Roy Blunt says the best job he ever had.
Yeah, most certainly.
But there is some parts of this that can you really go throw all the library books away? Well, probably not. But can you speak out with your bully pulpit? Maybe. And that creative license in politics, I mean, you either accept that as the way it is, or you have a real frustrated time, right?
Yes, yeah, most certainly. Well, you talk about that with the Secretary of State's office. Do they control the public libraries? No. Does some of the funding for public libraries come through the Secretary of State's office? Yes. And I've said, hey, if any public libraries has that X-rated material, especially in the kids section, number one, it shouldn't be there, and number two, your taxpayer dollars shouldn't pay for it. So
well,
I
they
said,
have that X-rated material. Can you get a list and maybe slide it to your old pal Scott? Just hey, I want to take a second. Thank my buddy Russ Oliver sent me this terrific Stein. Love this thing. It's got the top on it and everything. I mean, look at that.
That is nice. That is
a nice
yeah.
one. I want to thank our friends United Fiber. Lets us come and have chats like this with Cinder Hoskins. So when you walked off, the video stops, right?
The video stops. I walked off, and then I had three people come up and say, "Hey, did you know Representative Adam Schwadron taped that, videoed that?" And I said, No, like, why would he do that? So I went and approached.
What do you think he did it thinking that that would make you look bad? Because he's running against you.
Yes, he's running against
I don't
me.
think that's going to work that
No,
way.
no,
I
and
don't
so
think that's the way
and
that's
so
gonna
the video, it's not my video. It's Representative Schwadron's
Maybe
video.
He's trying to be Keogh's Eco Devo direction.
I don't know, but he sent it out to the media trying to embarrass me. I will never be embarrassed about sticking up for my wife.
Look, there probably was a time in Missouri politics where that might have been an iffy video. That is not this time in Missouri politics. This time in Missouri politics is I think it's been a big hit for you. I mean, I when I saw it, I thought this is a big day for Denny. I mean, so going forward, you see Jay out at the next event. What's the situation with the two of you?
Well, I think it's probably number one. It's best if he doesn't talk to my wife any, unless he's going to apologize. So if Jay Ashcroft,
you're dealing with you, not Michelle,
right? Yeah. If Jay wants to apologize to my wife, then hey, that's fine. But I really don't have anything to say to him. I meant those words that I said as far as calling him those names. I think it was a very cowardly move to come up to another candidate's wife. I mean, you've got a daughter.
14.
She's 14. You know, I've got a daughter who's 18. I can only hope that when they get married someday, that their future husband, my future son-in-law, will stick up for them the way that I stuck up for my wife. My dad would have done the same thing for my mom. And most certainly, I'm not going to let, in my wedding vows, I put that I will defend and honor my wife, and I'm going to continue to do that. So I'm not going to let another man come in and bully my wife, stick his finger in her face, and lip off to her. That's just not going to happen.
Man, it is a, the story you just said, it does not sound like the Jay Ashcroft I know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know Jay probably better than I do.
Yes.
I'm a little, that's surprising to me.
Yes.
Do you think it was this? Let me give my, my 10-cent psychiatry. Obviously, if you're Jay Ashcroft, Bill Eigle's campaign is a major problem for you. Mm-hmm. The voters that Bill connects with the best, without even much effort, are probably folks that left their own devices. I would say a lot of them pull a Ashcroft ballot in November. Mm-hmm. If my thought would be
right.
Maybe he's mad, but he's mad at you. That's the thing. It surprises me that he's mad. Like connecting the dot to you is not crazy. I mean, you and Bill are close. At the end of the day, I'm just surprised that I'm surprised it hit him that way. I'm surprised his reaction was such, and I'm interested to see I've seen a video. I think he did something with Mike Carter. It didn't really speak to what actually happened. Can he just call Michelle or call you and ask you to get on the phone to her and be privately done and quiet?
Yeah, most certainly. Again, this wasn't my video that I put out there, and so this was one of my opponent's video. I've been told that Schwadron and Ashcroft used some of the same consultants, and so they sent this out trying to embarrass me. Well, like I said, I'm not going to be embarrassed for defending and sticking up for my wife. But yes, if
I don't think
Jay Ashcroft
against you,
right? If Jay Ashcroft wants to call me and say, hey, I'd like to apologize to your wife, I can make that happen. My wife is in town at least one night a week, and so we can definitely make that happen.
Well, it does kind of feel like in any of these situations, the tie, like in baseball, the tie goes with the runner.
Right.
In these situations, the tie goes with the spouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would be fair to say if Katie Ashcroft had taken a conversation in an offensive way,
yes,
it's on you to make that right.
That's right. I agree.
Maybe this has become very public and probably makes it challenging to do so, but it does feel to me like, boy, the Jay Ashcroft I know would not intentionally offend a lady, and that's what's whether it was intentional or not, that's what's ended up happening. So
yeah, I asked Jay that same evening, you need to apologize to my wife. He gave me a blank stare, and I think it said no. I asked Adam Schwadron, I said, why don't you delete that video? He said no and laughed at me. And I said, what are you planning on doing with that video? He said, oh, I'm just sending it to some of my buddies and my campaign team. So I don't know if this was trying to be a hit piece on me or whatever, but this all could have gone away just a man face-to-face conversation. And unfortunately, it went viral. And, like I said, I'm not embarrassed about sticking up for my spouse. I'm not embarrassed about anything that I did. Maybe when I talked to my mom and I used a few maybe cuss words,
see your mama now,
right.
You kiss your mother with that mouth.
That's right. She may not have been too proud of some of the words I used, but most certainly she was very proud of me for sticking up for my wife. And she said my dad would have done the same thing.
All right. So just put a bow on this.
Yes.
You see Jay, there's going to be tension, right? Until he until he gets Michelle happy, right?
Yeah, I don't have anything to say to Jay Ashcroft. I mean, like I said, if he wants to apologize to my wife, then hey, let's move on.
And if you're
But
squadron, though, this happened at a public event. I mean, I don't think the part I don't grasp, and maybe I'm just a simple hillbilly, I don't get it. I don't see how this is going to hurt your campaign.
well, I think it says more about a man's character that would not have stuck up for his wife and just let another man bully his wife, put a finger in her face, and go off on her.
Age in the party that loves Donald Trump, on par with Jesus. I don't know that this looks poorly. Just take the personalities out of it. I don't think that level of testosterone is going to be frowned on by today's Republican Party. It would shock me if it was. So Session, let's talk about Session.
Yes.
What are you thinking about after you do all the media? It gets to be 4 o'clock.
Yes.
What are you thinking about today?
Probably the budget. The Senate Appropriations Committee is going into markups this week. Obviously we had a budget of 6-7 years ago, $27 billion. The governor proposed a $52.7 billion. So it's almost doubled in 6-7 years.
You're an accountant. There's reasons for that doubling more than you raising taxes or anything.
There is, but a lot of that one-time money.
Your 18-year-old probably has a job now, right?
She does. Yes.
She pays taxes.
Yes.
So this is all federal. Half of this money is federal money coming in. Shouldn't we get our federal money and spend here?
Well, yes, but on the operating expenses, on the general revenue, we are spending more in general revenue than we're taking in. And so those are the ongoing expenses. And so that's a problem.
Tax cuts were, in a lot of ways, the state reminds me of a lottery winner. They win the lottery, then 3 years later, they're bankrupt.
Right.
It does feel a little bit like the one-time money was used as an excuse for, ongoing operating revenue cuts.
Right.
It never felt like somebody sat down and said, okay, if we cut this operating revenue, once the lottery winnings are gone,
yes,
we're going to have to cut something else. And that's the one thing Republicans don't do. They talk about, okay, we're gonna cut your taxes, and they say, oh, we're gonna make it up on some trickle down thing, and that just doesn't happen. I mean, there are long-term 10-year benefits, I think, to cutting taxes.
Yes, I agree.
But those are 10-year benefits, right? That you wouldn't have a client come in your office and balance their books like that. You'd say, hey, you're going to have a deficit for years 1 to 7, and then you might catch up in the rest, which I think is a fine way to do it. But I think no one's ever sat down with the people of Missouri and said, okay, if we cut senior real estate taxes, this is what's going to be cut. Have you heard anybody actually say that?
No, I haven't heard anyone actually say that, but I guess I would argue that, hey, do you feel like you're getting twice as much government that you wanted with a state budget that's twice as much as 6-7 years ago? I don't feel like I'm getting that. And so when we talk about
budget twice as much,
it's almost twice as much.
But,
yes.
I mean, that's not a real number though. If you're driving on I-70,
right,
I bet you think, well, I don't know what they're doing in Jeff City, but I like this extra lane here.
Yes.
Because I drove to St. Louis this weekend and it's drudgery.
Right.
And it's just misery on that highway. You could put a 70-mile-an-hour speed limit if you want to, but you can't drive 70 because the traffic's too fast.
Right. Yeah, the traffic gets stacked up. So
if you cut the budget, where do you want to cut?
Well, I would say number one that when we talk about one-time money for one-time expenses, I've been a big proponent of that. One-time money for one-time expenses. I've been a huge advocate over the past several years about cutting FTE. And so, yes. And so, we've had 50,000. We have more full-time employees of our state than other similar states whether it's Indiana, Illinois. I used to have those figures memorized. Unfortunately, I don't anymore. But I think that's one of the biggest things. We have more government employees per 10,000 people of population than other states that was similar size. And so I think that's one of the things that we can look at cutting, and especially I'm not talking about firing people. I'm talking about getting rid of those jobs as people retire, as people, as we don't need certain jobs and things within state government, getting rid of those. And I've been a big advocate for that. I think last year I got excited because I cut maybe 40 jobs in the state budget, only to find out that we added about 700 through different departments because they said, well, we've got to staff up because we've got this federal money coming in. And so we've got to staff up. Now, I was able to say, okay, well, these are temporary jobs. And so when that staffing up is done and those job requirements, those jobs are finished allocating those federal funds, then they need to come off the books. And we need to, people need to understand that those aren't full-time jobs and we're just going to have those forever.
Last year, though, it ended a little messy.
It did.
Budget process. It kind of hurt the argument for we should cut the budget when you had a project in Warrensburg.
Mm-hmm.
Bill had a project in St.
Mm-hmm.
Charles. Like, well, this budget's too big, but put our stuff in,
Mm-hmm.
which I know a little about your Warrensburg project.
Yes.
It seemed extremely justifiable.
Right.
But still, it does cut if you're going to lay into the approach chair, but you've got something you want, right? That does make the argument a little harder to make, right?
Well, I was using one-time money for one-time expenses, and I've said that one-time money should be used for infrastructure. I don't know if it is a project you were talking about, but part of it was for the economic development. Well, yes, the airport was one. We needed a new terminal there in the airport. University of Central Missouri has a great aviation and aviation safety program.
Not just for
no classrooms.
You have a good reason in Warrensburg to have a beefed up airport.
Right.
You use it for more than just people flying into Warrensburg.
Yes. It's used for the students. They have an aviation maintenance program. I mean, aviation safety, aviation maintenance. That's huge in Warrensburg. They needed some classroom space and actually a terminal where, the pilots that are taking these students out to get their flight hours could come back and kind of go through, hey, you messed up on the takeoff on this, or you messed up on the landing on this, or when
you have a good justifiable, even if it's a very good, I think Bill was for a water project.
Yes.
So I happen to know is a very justifiable use
right.
of one-time money.
It was a loan.
But if you're going to say, hey, don't, the budget's too big, but my thing's good.
Mm-hmm.
There's everybody in the building has things they think are good.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it a little harder argument. This year, do you have some things you want to stick in?
I've not, the Senate Appropriations Chair and I have not discussed any projects going in there. I was kicked off the Appropriations Committee this year for sticking up for my conservative values.
I'm not sure that your colleagues cared as much as you did. I always felt like you took especially Eco Devo committee very seriously.
Yes.
I thought that was that motion. I don't know that it hit your colleagues as much as it did you. I'm sure you didn't care about the parking thing, but
right.
But I do think the committee is something you took seriously and did well.
Yeah, I did take the committee seriously. I mean, I'm the only certified public accountant in the Missouri State Senate. And so when you have economic development, tax policy as part of your Senate committee, I did take that very seriously. And I still, in the back of my mind, I wonder, obviously the four of us in the Missouri Freedom Caucus, we all lost our chairmanships. But I'm the only one that got kicked off two committees. I got kicked off Appropriations Committee, and I got kicked off the Economic Development Tax Policy Committee. I'm not for sure why, other than it was just personal retribution. We all four did the same thing, trying to filibuster to bring IP reform and conservative bills up on the Senate floor. But I got a couple extra punishments, I guess. But that's fine. I've always said
got good mileage out of it.
I've got good mileage out of it. And I've said all my bills that I filed that were going through Economic Development Committee, I filed them as amendments and offering them out on the Senate floor. So I have a lot more time to focus on amendments out on the Senate floor, and that's what I've been doing.
I like that. Let's start with the FRA.
Yes.
What take folks behind the scenes? What is the bargaining chip and why?
Well, I think the bargaining chip is, hey, the defund Planned Parenthood bill gets signed by the governor. We had that defund Planned Parenthood language in the budget bills up until the year 2020.
Yeah, but how are the two connected?
Well, because the FRA money can be used for Planned Parenthood.
But last year it wasn't.
Yeah, but Republicans always won't be in charge, and so we want something in state statute, and that's why I think the defund Planned Parenthood bill is.
It's
key.
fine to triple step, double secret probation, ban Planned Parenthood again.
Mm-hmm.
But you got Western Missouri in Warrensburg, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll shut down. I mean, are some things too big to use as bargaining chips?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, the power of the purse. And so with the FRA, 2 years ago, we went into special session for it because we didn't have it passed.
Your hometown benefits from the FRA. Your hometown. People will not have a doctor to go see. They'll have to drive to Kansas City, whatever's left of the hospitals in Kansas City. It's not just a bargaining chip that everybody else should give you something for it. Can you see the argument of your district benefits from the FRA?
Well, I think most districts benefit from
every
it.
single one.
Yeah. Well, but I've been told that some hospitals actually don't pay into the FRA. I don't want to mention any because I don't want to say, I don't have my facts with me,
I
but there are
but I do
hospitals
know
that don't pay into the
the hospital
FRA.
in Poplar Bluff, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt, closes, not the FRA. My mom can't go to the doctor in Poplar. She got to go to maybe but probably St. Louis. You probably have hospitals in St. Louis, Kansas City, Columbia, maybe Springfield. It just seems like maybe too big to use as leverage.
I guess I would disagree. I think it's pretty easy to say that, hey, let's get this defund Planned Parenthood
Susan
bill
Klein said
signed.
something in committee that I don't think you would believe. She said, "I'd rather not have an FRA than have hospitals in rural Missouri, but not have this small provision that doesn't happen anyway happen." Denny Hoskins, that I know, doesn't believe that. You really would close Western Missouri Medical over this?
No, most certainly. I wouldn't close.
I don't think Susan believed that. I think it's when you're testifying, and when Susan testifies, everybody pays attention, and she definitely garners attention. Whatever Susan does,
yes.
I don't think she meant that. Do you think she meant that?
I can't speak for Susan.
I had to go watch the video because I didn't believe people when they told me that. Because the press loves to take Susan, twist anything she says, and make all pro-life people look goofy.
Yeah, I agree.
But I don't think she meant that.
I think Susan is very focused on making sure that, hey, we defund Planned Parenthood.
Sure, and that's totally her job.
Right. And so when we had that language in the budget that's no longer in the budget anymore, the court said, hey, you need a separate bill. What makes most sense is to put that in the FRA bill. And that didn't happen.
Not going to happen? Are you worried that won't happen?
The FRA?
I mean, has the House passed that bill yet?
The defund Planned Parenthood?
I mean, getting the House bill, an abortion bill through the House of Representatives, like throwing a hot dog down a hallway. I think you could probably figure that out. Right?
Yes.
I assume they'll do it this week.
I would assume that
because it takes about a week to go through the House committee.
Right.
And then they got the rules thing they've got now.
Yes.
It feels like they're not slow walking it. They're going to do it. I assume it gets third read on Thursday. Is that good enough?
Well, we've said that, hey, as soon as the governor signs that defund Planned Parenthood bill, the FRA bill can go through. So
if Mike Parson called you and said, okay, the bill passed the House, which I think you'd have to assume that will happen. If he called you and said, hey, when that gets to me, we're going to do our bill review. We're going to sign it unless there's some wildly unforeseen issues. Is his word good enough for you?
Well, Mike Parson's word is good enough for me, but I'd want to see it on his desk. I mean, it's got to pass through both chambers. And if Governor Parson came to me and said, hey, I'm going to sign this, it's on my desk.
Evan Rodriguez is a pretty smart cat.
Yes.
To me, he's going to want to review it like anything that goes with his name on it. I mean, to me, if he came to you and said, yeah, I'm going to sign this, but I want to review it. I want to do my due diligence just to triple check everything.
Yes.
That seems like that. I mean, at some point that's good enough, right?
At some point, I could see that being good enough as long as it's on the governor desk and the governor comes out and publicly says, yes, we're going to sign this. I mean, 2 years ago, we got a fast one pulled over on us when there was two separate bills. Our Senate leadership said, oh, we're going to do those two separate bills at the same time, FRA and defund Planned Parenthood. Told us senators not to come in because nothing was going to happen. They gavelled in, moved the FRA bill, sine died, and then gavelled out. And so, I think I've still got the text. I know Sarah Walsh still has a text saying that, hey, the defund Planned Parenthood, we're going to take that up next week. So fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
I'm not a court follower. And I do think they've had several times to try to do this, and the court has at least said, well, you can't do this because of this. Right? Do you think they've got enough? You have enough information from the courts to know, okay, now I know how to write this bill where we don't have to, this will work.
Yes, I think so.
That's what I think. I think you've taken 5 or 6 shots and the court's denied them all. But I think each time they've left you a little pebble of what you have to do to get this done. It feels like you're either right at it or you're going to get to where you can ban doing business with Planned Parenthood.
I agree.
If you're Planned Parenthood, why don't you just set up another thing? Why don't you set up, we're planned fatherhood, and here we go again, right?
Right. Well,
it's like whack-a-mole.
Yeah, it is kind of whack-a-mole, kind of like when we banned K2 and then they came out with K3 the next year and things like, they just changed a little molecule.
End of the day, I believe they'll pass some version of this triple stamp ban of Planned Parenthood, right? And an FRA.
I think in the end,
you're a nurse in Warrensburg,
I think in the end,
tell that nurse that you're confident she's not going to be out of a job.
Yes, I can tell that nurse that I'm confident she won't be out of the job. I can tell that nurse that I'm very confident that both of those will be signed.
Yeah, and and you take another shot, and maybe the court's real good on this one, maybe not, but you'll have done what you can do, right?
Right, exactly.
The budget. What's the right number for the budget? If 52 is the wrong number.
Well, I think, it depends on what happens here in Senate appropriations markup. I doubt that I'm going to be on the conference committee for any of those budget bills.
I think let me hold on one second. I'm signing knowledge. He will not be on the conference at all.
I would say not. So we'll see what happens in the Senate Appropriations Committee with markups. I've got the most experience of anyone according to the budget because I served on budget in the House. I've been on appropriations in the Senate.
Warrensburg before you leave the Senate.
I
guess if you don't want to full, is there a conversation to be had with you and Lincoln about a way you could get good?
I want to make sure that our veterans' homes and veterans' cemetery is okay. Obviously,
I've got to ask this because they're blowing me up.
Yes.
The by God sports betting.
Yes, sports betting.
Is there any hope that you would just let these people bet on football? Every time I tweet anything about you in the Senate,
right,
5 or 6 people that I guarantee you are probably not even really follow politics.
Yes.
Well, he won't let us bet on sports.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, sorry, man, I don't tell you, but I know. Not a gambler myself, but is there any way that in your last weeks as a senator, you just sit down and say, okay, here's my deal. Here's the deal. Take it or leave it.
I've done that. I've done that every year, I think, for the last 6 years. This year, we haven't had that much conversation about it. The House bill has not made it over here. I don't think, and the Senate has even heard those.
Can you and Dan House go to Chicks here in Jeff City? Set at Chicks, and don't come out of that bar until you come with something. Is that possible?
That's what happened when Senator Hageman and I had that same conversation, and we came up. Casinos are just a hard no on any video lottery terminals. And how this conversation came up was I said, hey,
isn't video lottery terminals in a good place then? Because they're everywhere.
They are everywhere. These gray machines are everywhere. Liquor stores, bars and taverns, convenience stores, truck stops.
Would want to get in that business, right? They used to be kind of against sports gambling sites.
Mm-hmm.
Then I watched the casinos buy up all the sports gambling sites.
Right.
And now they're generally for it.
Right.
Do you think there's if you're the casinos, whatever you're doing now, you're losing.
Yes.
Because you can't go buy a soda at a gas station in Missouri.
Right.
Without walking by 5 slot machines.
Right. Well, you Missouri Boulevard here in Jefferson City, you go to the liquor store and because you can see them piled up next to the it's right next to the Mexican restaurant. And so you can see those right on Missouri Boulevard. You can see all those machines right there in the liquor store from the front window. Yes.
Although I've become over to El Espelon guy because they have one closer to downtown.
Well, that works.
And Amanda is a big promoter of the El Espelon out off of the one by Gerbs there.
Okay. Yes.
Town,
yep.
East of town.
Uh-huh.
Your chief of staff turned me on to that El Espelon.
Yep.
So is there the deal would be you let VLTs go, we'll let Sportsbook go. That deal hasn't been taken for 5 years.
No, that deal, and we've even had some limited amount of VLTs. VLTs would bring in about $250 million, of which $30 million because it's in fees. Well, could be. Depends on. It's not being taxed at the appropriate rate.
I'm trying to be smart. If you go to the liquor store here by El Jimador,
right,
and the money you're putting in there, is there a way to tax that?
Well, if they are paying taxes on it, they'd be paying just the
regular
business tax here in the state of Missouri, where VLTs are proposed a 32% tax if they're legalized. But to make those $250 million, of which $30 million in fees could go toward our veterans' homes and cemeteries, because right now we've got a $50 million hole there that we're supplementing with general revenue. So this whole thing started with me trying to find a dedicated funding source for our veterans' homes and cemeteries. And then Sportsbook, if you look at that fiscal note, it says anywhere for state revenue to the state of Missouri from $0 to $30 million. So a lot of people.
It's not going to be zero.
Well, it depends on how many business deductions they get. And so are the casinos going to be able to take all these business deductions that they can't right now, free plays and things like that? So free plays, and if you go to casino now and you get a free play, the casino can't take that off as a business deduction. But in some of these some of this ballot language, they can take those. And so literally in other states that have done that, where they can deduct all their business expenses that they can't deduct now, those states are getting little to no revenue actually coming from sports betting.
So basically, this is not happening this session.
I sincerely doubt that it's happening this session. Like I said, the House bill hasn't made over the Senate. The Senate hasn't even had hearings on that, on sports betting or any bill in the Senate Appropriations Committee. So I would say it's highly unlikely.
The red jacket. Where's the red jacket come from? Just Michelle thinks you look good in it, or tell me how that came about.
No, actually, with the red jacket, out there on the Senate floor, I wear some wild, crazy.
Well, you inherited
sport
a
coats.
tradition from
That's
David
right.
Pierce of dressing gaudy on the Senate
Yes,
floor.
yeah. Senator Pierce always wore a red jacket, and so I picked up one. And so when I'm in Kansas City, they think I'm a big Chiefs fan.
Yep.
When I'm in St. Louis, they think I'm a St. Louis Cardinals fan. If I'm at Southeast Missouri State, they think I'm a Red Hawks fan. If I'm at UCM, University of Central Missouri, they know I'm a Mules fan.
See, that's where I was going to suspect it. You got it from UCM.
I did originally get it from UCM.
Thinking,
yeah. And so I started wearing it to some of these Lincoln Days and Republican events, and people are like, yeah, I was wondering which one you were. And they said, just look for the guy in the red jacket.
Yep.
And then there's a couple Republican events that I didn't wear it to, and people came up and said, hey, where's your red jacket?
Yeah, I think the red jacket's working.
The red jacket's working.
And now everybody's seen you in the video they'll see you the most in, telling Jay Ashcroft off in the red jacket.
Right.
So, I mean, I think you're kind of pot committed to the red jacket.
Yes.
Tell me how the campaign's going.
Campaign's going very well.
Everybody I know is running, except Flat Dog. Flat Dog is not
Yes,
running.
no Flat Dog.
Yeah, he didn't jump in.
Yep, he didn't.
So you got Senator Coleman, you got Plocker.
Yes.
You have the gal that does all the videos.
Yes.
It's real pissy.
Noriega.
Who else you got?
Another lady, Corley. Yep, Schwadron.
There's a lady I had not heard of until recently.
Mm-hmm.
Did something with an abortion IP.
Yes.
She's running.
Yes, she's running. Yep.
I don't know her that well.
I've never met her. I've never seen her out on the campaign trail.
What kind of cash on hand you report?
We've got a little over 250,000 between the PAC and the campaign. So we're second in the. I'd like to raise another $400,000 in order for the campaign. But we're
some other candidates don't have. You have a grassroots network.
Yes.
That Lemke has built, done this amazing job throughout the state in these competitive state Senate primaries.
Right.
He has, I don't know, probably as far as the districts that have Republicans in them, he probably has half the state a grassroots effort already kind of built in. This was real. It's not.
It is.
When people say grassroots, you roll your eyes. Okay,
right.
That's what every loser says.
Right.
But I mean, Jim has put together an actual group of people that are, I think, actually not just something you'd say, but actual folks that I tend to think have a pretty good shot of showing up and mattering in a race.
I would agree. Every Lincoln Day, and we've gone to about 30 Lincoln Days since January of this year, just getting out and meeting the people. But every Lincoln Day, it seems like it's had a record crowd, and they are very fired up. They're very engaged. There are Eigel shirts at every Lincoln Day that I go to. He always has a surrogate there for if he can't be there, because sometimes there's more than one Lincoln Day on one night, just like this Saturday night. They had St. Francis Lincoln Day, I think Hickory County Lincoln Day, and Camden County Lincoln Day on the same night. Well, you can't be all three spots at once. But yes, Lemke's done a very great job of putting together a grassroots network. Being a part of the Missouri Freedom Caucus and my conservative voting record has definitely given me some more, free advertising. Being the only candidate endorsed by Missouri Right to Life on a down ballot ticket race, I think that's very important as well. And, this video, the video that just came out that trying to embarrass me for standing up for my wife and being a good husband and sticking up to my wedding vows, I've gotten a lot of positive publicity for that.
Oh, I think, you're going to have there was a time in politics.
Yes.
That folks might have looked down on that a little bit.
Right.
More. That's not today.
Right.
Today, it's probably folks that are thinking, if they're going to anything, they loved it, they watched it, they sent their buddies. Right or wrong, I just don't think there's any angle on this that makes you look bad.
Right.
In today's politics, whether it's good or not.
Right.
That is what it is.
Yeah.
So who's the person that you got to keep the closest eye on? Is it Plocker says the money?
Plocker does have quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
That's for sure. But it's still a long ways away.
Senator Coleman's a talented politician.
Yeah, she is. She is.
Representative Schwadron, I got to say, I wasn't quite sure what all the campaign dynamic was. Then I saw him land a $100,000 check.
Yes.
I was like, well, okay, that's real.
Right. That is real.
And
those are hard dollars.
That he's got some more folks that he's some more of the same type coming along. I mean, to be in this race, I do think you can come in a little cheaper because you do have that grassroots group.
Yes.
You do have, I would assume, most folks that are excited for Bill Eigel
Right.
probably have a favorable impression of you.
Yes.
So that's something that is a tangible thing. It's not just, oh, we're going to do grassroots and everybody laughs. And
Right.
blah, blah.
Right.
Those are real things.
Those are real people. That's right.
End of the day, can you get that 400,000?
I think so.
A lot of after session type stuff.
Yes, a lot of after session type stuff, but we had some
VLT people got to support you, right? If they don't cut you a significant check, I mean, that's pretty much over as far as the legislative effort. I mean, if they don't support you, who's going to take the baton from you on VLTs?
Last year we saw Senator Schroer, step up to the plate, and I think he's actually offered an amendment. So
is he a torch guy or a VLT guy? Because it's kind of, y'all are just cousins, right? You're not brothers.
We're cousins.
Torch and VLT.
Yeah, we're
not
cousins.
Exactly, they're the same.
We're cousins. It'll be interesting. I know there's going to be a lot of new people in the Senate next year, one way or another.
Yeah.
And so, maybe somebody else will step up and take the torch too to help fund our veterans homes and cemeteries.
The torch, right?
Literally a torch. That's right.
The torch.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
But I mean, the VLT folks have to be supporters of yours, right?
Yeah, the VLT folks have been very supportive of me and my campaign, and I would expect them to continue.
It's almost
to do
like
that.
if all the school choice people, they don't support Phil Cristofanelli, it's going to be like, no, wait a minute here. What do you got to do to win you over?
Right.
It's a little bit like with you and the VLTs. I mean, the VLTs don't come in heavy for you. I'm not sure there's going to be that long of a line of people wanting to meet with him next year, because it's like, well, Denny carried your water for this long, and then you don't come through that.
Right.
I think it'd be interesting. It's always interesting to see when the guy who really carries it for something. Like everybody thought when Shots was gone, then it's all going to happen, right?
Right.
Well, not really, right?
Right.
So now it's Denny's going, all is going to happen. Well, we'll see. Usually there's someone to pick up that cause and make it their own.
Yeah, there is.
Give me a prediction. 5 years from now, is there a deal on this? Are people betting on sports, and is there some sort of regulation in the VLT market?
Yes, I would say 5 years from now there is some deal on this. People are betting on sports. Hopefully, it's a good tax rate and good fees, and has at least $10 million for
I mean, I was
problem
right now,
compulsive
people
gambling.
violate the law. What are they going to do to you?
Right. They just.
Gene Peters Baker going to prosecute you for betting on sitting in the Arrowhead parking lot betting on the Chiefs.
Right.
I don't think she will.
Right.
Is Mr. Russell gonna give you grief in Johnson County for betting on the Chiefs?
No.
I don't think Bob Russell is prosecuting you for that.
Right.
Maybe I'm wrong, and I may go to jail for it. But I just go through the illegal means and do it until the government gets out of your way. Just do it like you want.
Right.
I think the government's going to joke on the whole thing, and don't listen to them. Just do whatever you want to do.
Well, and you could say the same thing for the video lottery terminals. I mean,
Sure.
they're in, no matter where you go. I
will say, I do think that there's been a legitimate group of people that now do it based off of what the prosecutor says. If your local prosecutor says either do it or I don't have time for this,
right,
then you do it.
Right.
If he says hell no, I'm gonna go collect them,
yes,
then I think people don't.
Right.
I heard there was once upon a time Republicans believed in local control. Long ago and far away, before John Cawthorn flipped the Senate. Local control was something they believed in. That's local control, I guess.
That is local control. Yeah, right now it seems like it's very much up to the local prosecutor if they want to prosecute it. And I know there's a couple cases out there. We'll see how those cases end up, whether they determine those pre-revealed machines are legal or not legal.
I've got to ask you, Michelle loves you a great deal.
She does.
So when she comes over once a week, I think she stays in that rat hole you and Sir Boy live in, right?
She does.
I mean, it looks like a crime. I've been in this apartment. It looks like a crime scene. I mean, it is disgusting. Connie, I don't think will stay there.
No,
when she comes in.
Yeah.
I think she lays the lot of. But Michelle,
Yep.
What a great wife. But if you're gonna bring in someone else to town, what hotel you gonna put them up in? I mean,
the same one that you would.
the Courtwood, but
Courtwood Marriott. Yes. Yes.
Then I was doing my show. It was a great show. Show Missouri, the history of Missouri, one county at a time. It'll be really this Wednesday, up in Livingston County, Chillicothe.
Okay.
Hometown of Jerry Litton.
Yes.
The legendary Jerry Litton.
Yes.
Litton Charlotte Ranch.
Sliced bread.
Sliced bread. And the oldest serial killers in the United States. The Copelands.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The guy would take them, and nobody would take his check. So he would go bring in hands and sign them up for bank accounts, send them the cattle cell. They'd write a check. Then you'd never see the people again. Finally got caught. I'm like, you'd think this is back in the 30s. No. The 1980s. Crime Stopper Hotline got it.
Wow.
Yeah. So all you want to know about Livingston County, we had Rusty came over, which is great. Sherry Parks, the clerk. Judge Chapman came in.
Yes.
And Sherry Baker used to be on the State Fair Commission. We had the president of local farm. We had a good time up in Livingston County. It is so interesting. That's knock on the door of your new district, right?
Well, it used to be part of my new district.
Oh,
now,
right?
Yes, I used to have Livingston County until they redistricted, and then I lost Livingston County and Caldwell County. But they don't have a Courtyard Marriott yet in Livingston County. But hopefully they will.
Obviously, Randolph, get up your game on that. Tell me, did you like your old district or your new district better?
Well, I would say I liked having my own home county, Johnson County, in my district, and so I lost.
Is it better for Johnson County to be the little brother to Cass in a district, or to be the kingpin of the district like you ran for? See, if I was Johnson County, I would not like the new district.
Right.
I would want to be the kingpin of my district.
And that's how it used to be. It used to be Cass and Johnson were together, and then
Cass has just grown. They used to almost be like they're the cousins that one hit the growth spurt, right?
Right.
But they used to be relatively the same size. That's not the case anymore.
No.
Kansas City suburbs is totally
Cass County is twice as big as Johnson County, at least right now, and they just keep growing. Cass County does. Yeah.
That southern end, that suburban stuff just
keeps on trickling down.
Gross. I hate that for them. Well, Harrisonville, there's two parts of Cass County. There's like Harrisonville's real people. You get much north of Harrisonville, it just gets into those suburb people, which, oh God, hate it for. Hope things turn around. They can move to a good part of the state. Senator, you give me more time than I asked for. Thank you. Amazing weekend. I appreciate the time.
Yes, thank you.
What a crazy thing. And we'll see. I mean, I know that it's now. The next time you show up to something, everybody's going to be watching.
Everybody will be watching. I'm going to continue to focus on my Secretary of State race. I can't control what other people do, whether I'm running against them for the same office or not. So we're going to keep our focus.
Well, thank you for the time, Denny. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you.